So first on this aspect, um, I kind of like the 40, 30, 20, 10. What's your thought, Saphir? I didn't see any discussion in the incentive channel. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I kind of lean towards the original 25, 2015, only in the sense of assuming best case scenario, obviously this thing kicks off and really starts hitting the ground running. It is a happy blend between that kind of 5-year runway that you had talked about, where we do still have like enough ammunition in that final year to potentially draw it out. But to your point earlier, where it's not like it's mandatory to spend these
Mhm.
tokens, of course, depending on how the actual like committee determines things in that first 2-year period, if we feel like we're really kicking off with success, and that those tokens will be a bit more valuable over time, then we can choose to withhold that extra 5%, even if it's not within the initial guidelines.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and kind of like, Edward, you're talking about that one time, like if you look at the IF, now granted, they didn't really ever liquidate into USDT. So I think that was more of their poor token management than not setting tokens aside for the, to last 8 years. But, um, the 40, 30, 20, 10 does, it just seems more understandable. I think what really would happen in between year 2 and 3, um, basically the community would have a reassessment of where are we at, you know, let's reassess this. Um, and again, I think as well, and Edward, you brought it up there at the last message in the incentives is like, yes, we have this 4-year runway, but the foundational focus should be that within these 4 years, we're creating an economic system in which um, tokens are being replenished back into the community treasury. So, year one is probably going to be just building the infrastructure, GitHub, marketing, community building, et cetera, et cetera. And then year 2 and 3, ideally you're, expanding the ecosystem and you're, getting applications in, you're giving incentives to get people to build dApps, et cetera, to build things to do within the ecosystem. And when you give that, it is very easy to say, hey, we want 10% equity, or we want a 7% return on this. This is a loan for 4 years. I mean, there's multiple ways to do it. Um, and those, and I always looked at it as, you know, if the ecosystem is doing good, then the dApp is doing good. So the dApp that is within a thriving ecosystem is going to succeed. And the dApp wants a treasury that's supporting that ecosystem as a whole, right? So if the treasury is doing good, the ecosystem is doing good, the dApp is doing good. If the dApp is doing good, the ecosystem is doing good, the treasury is doing good, right? It's a very synergetic, um, you know, when oceans rise, all boats rise with it type thing. Uh, Spending, may I suggest something? Absolutely. Go ahead, Lion Alpha. Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Just want to say about the ecosystem part that if it goes good or not. As a PhD candidate, a researcher, I can guarantee that the moment that the TAN network goes live with the Phyllis one, with the Phyllis layer one, like publicly, it will attract for good and for a good amount of attention, if you'd like, the researchers back to the original vision regarding the DLTs, because I'm doing my research on interaction with the Simmer network, and the current conditions kind of, sorry, excuse me for my language, fucked up the whole thing. But due to the Simmer still being live, I could finish my research. But the fact that the whole original vision changed and that you guys continue it with the TAN, it's actually a really good thing. So I can guarantee that the R&D community will support it. So I think that from year one you will see a good amount of interaction with the ecosystem, considering the fact that there have already been reactions in the academic community with the whole changes of the IOTA and Simmer. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I think for us, that really means a lot. To hear that coming from a R&D specialist, and that's all we want is I think a lot of us were just so burned by the IF creating this for the community, but then abandoning it and blaming the community when
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the community never had any control over it. So, well, we really have something here. I mean, we have something that's going to be truly built from the ground up by the community, and I think we really can show. And it's you know, and I've always said this: our community has so much talent, like yourself, like others, you know, in all areas, from finance to economics to gaming to tech, etc.
Sure.
So oh, yeah, absolutely great, and it's great to know that. And I think then you know taking that and I want to just not skip over. So Mr. Storm said spending should be reassessed yearly, and I think that's true. You're right. We should every year reassess. You know what's our next year's vision? How's that going to pertain to the long-term vision? And really, how's that going to pertain to the successful growth of the ecosystem?
Sure.
And
Just
how are we
one
going
more
to?
heads up, if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Um, just for the sake of the knowledge, I know for a fact that the European Commission was working with IOTA on specific fields and important fields currently that are very popular across Europe, specifically digital circular economy. And they worked closely for many frameworks utilizing the old system of IOTA, the IOTA Stardust, the old technology that you guys that you plan to continue. Um, you can also utilize that for further promotion and utilization and collaborations. The
Yeah.
original vision opened many doors that the foundation closed the moment they launched Rebased. Just want to say that as well.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Cool. Okay. So I think we're all on the same page of let's do this middle path. Let's do 40, 20, 30, or sorry, 40, 30, 20, 10. And let's reassess at a yearly basis with the long-term vision of creating a healthy, everlasting ecosystem and an everlasting um, community treasury. Okay. You know, I even thought too, at some point, a treasury, you know, I always thought if our treasury, you know, at the time, the Shimmer treasury or the IOTA treasury got big enough that that they should invest in like real estate, you know, and again, it's just diversifying your portfolio, not only over, you know, tokens, but it can go into global stock markets, global bond markets, global real estate, you know, all things through, you know, LLC and corporation. And you know, there's so much that can be done with real estate with a lower capital because you're getting corporate, you know, you're getting loans. So essentially, quote unquote, using other people's money, which is the bank's money. And there's just really so many different ways to support a self-refilling treasury, which again, all that then supports R&D, you know, global new innovative societal kind of applications, as well as things that might not have really been broken through in the market, such as like L1 gaming, etc. So again, I really think that there's, you know, a real chance here, and hearing that someone like Lion Alpha, that, you know, there's just so much out there that was never finished, and you know these teams that have this, you know, these projects that, you know, were done to 80% and they just need to bring it to that last 20%, and hopefully we can do that as a group. So next step, I think, is when we look at, and I think we should continue this in the incentive channel, is okay, now we know how much we're going to do in year one. Now we really got to break this down. We need to break this down into, okay, the technical side, the governance side, the marketing side, and how we can sort of take this allocation and segment that into the baskets in which what do we want to do in the year one to get this network going. So, you know, from, you know, what Edward has said, hey, what are people going to do when they get this airdrop? You know, can we incentivize any dApps that are already built on Shimmer to come over and port into the TAN network? Marketing, like we have Garrett's social platform, Saphir, what was it? I can't, my mind's always slipping.
It's called GroupFi.
GroupFi. So, GroupFi is live. How do we get people to know it's live, to know they can use it, come into marketing? Governance, like, yes, this governance structure is working to get things going, but, we do want a much more long-term foundational governance. Marketing, how can we get the word out? How can we get, people to know that, hey, this is the continuation of the Shimmer network. If your project was left off at 80%, we're continuing the vision, right? So I think a good next steps would be to really go in and break down year one into maybe category segments, and then we could start looking at, per quarter, and get some incentives out once we get it in the multi-sig. Because someone like JIGL, I think now, who's taking time and building the GitHub, should be getting rewarded. To be honest, I think some of us that are building this governance should be rewarded, etc. It's time to really get the action and the ground running to where we can get the airdrop. If we have a 1 year, 12-month lock period, now we need to start looking at, who are we going to use for that? That would be Hedgie. Potentially it could be through the IOTA wallet. So now we can start looking into these things. I know we had a applicant for the tech lead, and the tech lead, I think, as a single position is just so time consuming. It's really unrealistic for someone to do that for free. Yet we're stuck in this real hard position in the beginning where there's really no value and no liquidity in the token. So we just aren't at the position to, sell into, let's say, fiat, USDT, or, give those tokens out without a lock. That is then going to tank, basically any momentum that gets going in the beginning. So I think maybe breaking up that tech lead position and just calling it, we just need tech consultants from the community that can do some time, that doesn't mind giving an hour to, for some tokens that will be locked for 12 months, but could be valuable, could be really valuable. I mean, again, we see, and Saphir has notated several different crypto projects that really people became rich from that because they literally worked for free in some of these token new projects that, had almost didn't have a chance in hell, and they got rewarded with large amount of token incentives in the beginning. All right, see you later, Mrs. Storm, and I'm glad you could join, and thanks for adding some comments there for the yearly assessment. So, I think maybe we have like a tech channel? We do have a tech channel under specifics. So maybe we start like looking at breaking that down, tagging people, trying to create some action items, which, for one, and then I think it's always good, as something I saw in, the Shimmer Treasury, was that we had so many talented, even devs, that were totally happy to do like an hour or two a week. They didn't want to take anything on full time. They didn't even want pay. They didn't even want tokens, which we always gave it to them just because it's the right thing to do. But, they just wanted to support it, and they were great as like a quick consultant. Like there's other people that do have the time and do want to do that for tokens and take the time to build something, whether that be a GitHub or, code documentation, etc., building things within the the